Call this meeting of the Norwood City Council for January 13th, 2015 to order. If we'd all rise for the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Lake, would you like to lead us in the prayer?
Absolutely. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in these council chambers. We pray for thy divine guidance, that we may do all things well, according to thy holy will. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Shall we call the roll?
Mr. Braden? Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Whittington?
Here.
Ms. Allen?
Here.
Mr. Thornbury?
Here.
Mr. Sanker?
Here.
Mr. Mumper?
Here. All members present except Mr. Breeden is here. We have a quorum. The only amendment to the agenda is we are adding a letter with the mayor's court fines to the communications, section O of the agenda for communications. We voted on this, right? Yes.
We need a motion.
So I need a motion to amend the agenda. Sorry, I was looking over there. Mr. Clark, seconded by Mr. Mumper. Call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornbury?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes. All members present voting aye. The amendment has been the agenda has been amended. We have no minutes of previous meetings. We have, to my knowledge, no requests to address council on agenda items. We have no reports of standing committees of council. We have no third readings of ordinances or second readings of ordinances to deal with. Benefits of a Christmas vacation. We do have introductory readings of ordinances. The first is the ordinance to change the appropriations for the year 2015, declaring an emergency. What is council's pleasure? Mr. Mumper.
I move we suspend the rules and have all three readings.
Seconded by Mr. Sanker. Is there any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Sanker?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a
Mr.
note.
Sanker.
Yes, sorry. Just a note of explanation. I've been in contact with Mr. Stithen. The two items that you see on this appropriation change, the one for the core funds, that basically is a transfer of funds. We received money from the environmental cleanup over on Section Avenue, and so that money basically needs to be appropriated. It's money we received, so it needs to be accounted for, so that on Fund 97, that money is just basically a straight transfer into that fund there. And also, in the police department, the debt service, that is for the cruisers. The first payment, actually, we didn't realize it was going to be due right at the first of the year. So we had to add that to there. We had discussed that, and the payment would be coming from the forfeiture fund. So it had to be added into this because the payment came due the first of the year. So that's what that is for, is the first payment for the police cruisers.
Thank you, Mr. Sanker. Are there any other comments? Motion on the floor is to suspend the rules and have all three readings. Call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornbury?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All those in favor, everyone in favor, we shall have all three readings of the ordinance. Please proceed.
Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2015 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2015 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2015 and declaring an emergency.
Do I have a motion? Mr. Mumper.
I move we pass the ordinance.
Seconded by Mr. Whittington. Is there any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornbury?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All members voting yes, the motion passes. We'll move to the second introductory reading of ordinances. This is the ordinance declaring certain vehicles to be surpluses and authorizing the sale or transfer of such vehicles and declaring an emergency. Mr. Mumper.
I move we suspend the rules, have all three readings.
Seconded by Ms. Allen. Is there any discussion? Mr. Mumper.
I just want to mention, these are all cars that were acquired during drug raids. They're no city-used vehicles. So and some of them have been started for 4 or 5 years. So they're of great value.
As opposed to city vehicles. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All member voting yes. We have agreed to suspend the rules and have all three readings. Please proceed with the readings.
Ordinance declaring certain vehicles to be surplus and authorizing the sale or transfer of such vehicles and declaring an emergency. Ordinance declaring certain vehicles to be surplus and authorizing the sale or transfer of such vehicles and declaring an emergency. Ordinance declaring certain vehicles to be surplus and authorizing the sale or transfer of such vehicles and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Whittington.
I move the ordinance be passed.
Seconded by Mr. Clark. Is there any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All members voting yes, the ordinance passes. Move to the third introductory reading of ordinances, the ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to consent to have the State of Ohio Director of Transportation inspect bridges owned by the City of Norwood and declaring an emergency. It is council pleasure. Mr. Mumper.
I move we suspend the rules, have all three readings.
Have a second by Mr. Clark. Is there any discussion? Mr. Mumper.
Yes, this is just like it says, and this inspection is free. So, that's our favorite terms of any contract is free, so let's get it done.
Any other discussion? Mr. Clark.
I was just going to echo that and state that it says in the letter that we received that we normally pay $300 to $400, so I think pretty no-brainer to me.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir. It basically encompasses just really one bridge over a section road there that would need the inspection on an annual basis. But it's the bridge that goes over by, if anybody's familiar with Lutch's area there, if you're heading north on section, the first part of that bridge, which crosses over just the railroad tracks, that is the bridge that would be covered under this inspection policy. So it's not like it's multiple bridges, so that one is the one that qualifies for this.
Very good. And I just wanted to throw in, I appreciate Mr. Gears, Safety Service Director, provided a cover letter and lots of good background material on this with the packet, and we always like to encourage that kind of behavior, so appreciate that. So the motion on the floor is to, let's see,
Suspend.
the motion is to suspend. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All present voting yes. Motion carries. Please have all three readings.
Ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to consent to have the State of Ohio Director of Transportation inspect bridges owned by the City of Norwood and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to consent to have the State of Ohio Director of Transportation inspect bridges owned by the City of Norwood and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to consent to have the State of Ohio Director of Transportation inspect bridges owned by the City of Norwood and declaring an emergency.
It's council pleasure. Mr. Clark.
I move that the ordinance be passed.
Second by Mr. Mumper. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All present voting yes, the ordinance passes. I will move to introductory readings of resolutions. The one resolution before us is a resolution requesting the county auditor to make advance payments of taxes pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 321-34 and declaring an emergency. What would be the pleasure of council, Mr. Clark?
I move to suspend the rules and have all 3 readings of the resolution.
Second by Mr. Mumper. The motion is to suspend the rule and have all 3 readings. Is there any discussion? Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir. Just as a note of explanation, this particular resolution, which would be sent down to the county auditor, is requesting that we would get advance payments that for our taxes that come into the auditor's office down at the county. Typically, they will hold those and distribute them only a couple times a year. This way, there is a process where through the Ohio Revised Code that will allow the municipalities to receive their payments on a regular basis. I don't know, it's not quite monthly, but so we're not waiting for just a couple times a year for the money that actually is in a holding fund for the city of Norwood down at the county auditor's office. They will then forward it to us as it comes in. So it does help us from a cash flow procedure here in the city by getting our funds, our actual cash in hand so that we can distribute it out properly here versus waiting till like June or the end of the year for our payment. So that's what this resolution is requesting.
Good. Are there any other comments? The motion on the floor is to suspend the rules. Please call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir?
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All present voting yes, the motion passes.
A resolution requesting the county auditor to make advance payments of taxes pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 32134, and declaring an emergency. A resolution requesting the county auditor to make advance payments of taxes pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 321.34, and declaring an emergency. A resolution requesting the county auditor to make advance payments of taxes pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 321.34, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mumper?
Move the resolution be passed.
Second by Mr. Clark. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All members voting yes, the resolution passes. We have no, I assume, administration reports from Acting Mayor Lake. And no other requests to address council that have been registered with us. Is there any unfinished business that anyone on council would like to discuss? Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir. I'd like to go through the chair and ask the law director one of his favorite questions. I know it's the first of the year, new year, and I guess the questions have come up in regards to the Quality Inn and the status on that, rather how that's proceeding, if at all. And, so just a quick update. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thornberry. Thank you for the question, Mr. Sanker. As it stands now, as most of you know, the hotel remains closed. The restaurant Cancun remains open, and that's how things will remain for the foreseeable future. The litigation continues in both the federal district court and the Hamilton County probate court. Things are progressing, albeit slowly. I am optimistic that 2015 will see a resolution and hopefully see that property return to productive use in different hands is my personal hope. But for the time being, the hotel will remain closed. There is work being done. You've probably seen trucks and people, workmen going in and out on occasion, which is a good sign. I think it's a valuable piece of property. So I think one way or another, the thing's going to get resolved this year, but for the time being, the hotel's closed and the restaurant's open. So if you got a need for margaritas or burritos, don't hesitate to go to Cancun.
Thank you, Mr. Berkowitz. Any additional unfinished business? Ms. Allen?
Yeah, I guess to Ms. Lake or Mr. Sanker, I just wanted to see, is there any update on the housing committee that the mayor appointed to look into, I guess, the rental certificates, et cetera? I just wanted to get an update on that. I don't care. It doesn't matter who answers, I just.
No, I don't know that there was ever a head of it. We've never met,
Right.
although I did speak with the mayor, and he is anxious for us to get together. So I will be contacting Mr. Sanker and Mr. Berkowitz to call together a meeting. We've kind of been gathering information ourselves,
Great.
but
Thanks, I just, had some folks asking, so I wanted to make sure I followed up.
thank you.
Any other unfinished business? Any new business? I'd like to add one. I'd like to call a community development meeting for Tuesday, February 3rd at 5:30 PM in council chambers. That's notable in that it's the one day later than we would typically have that meeting. The reason being is thanks to Ms. Allen's efforts to get people together. The representatives from the Wasson Way project will be, and that would be the sole, at this point, the sole agenda item on the meeting is to get an update on the Wasson Way project. Did you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I would just say, so Cincinnati, I mean, I actually don't have the best update, Mr. Bonsell might, but I don't want to put him on the spot. But Wasson Way, if anyone's been keeping up with what's happening in Cincinnati, there's been some movement on that. And there's, so we just want to make sure that we're aware of what's happening and that we're being proactive in hopefully gaining some support and being able to maybe potentially put forth a resolution. We'll see what comes out of that meeting of issuing our support, because I think, as most people know, part of Wasson Way will go through Norwood. So it's an important project. I think it has a lot of potential for really great things, so that's why. So please come to the meeting if you have any interest and have your voice heard. So, thanks.
Very good. Mr. Clark?
What was the time on that meeting again?
It'll be at 5:30 PM in council chambers here, I believe. I don't know if there's any.
Yeah, no.
Did we check there's any conflict with that officially?
No, we didn't, but.
Yeah, we will. We have one more meeting before that'll happen, so if there's a change in that, I'll make sure everybody and that the public is apprised.
Brown knows about that because he's on the committee. Chris Brown.
Right, right. He would be on the usual list. All right, any other new business? No other new business? Is there a motion to excuse?
You have one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. We have the communications from the mayor regarding mayor's court fines. Would you care to read that for us? The letter?
Ms. Donna M. Lake, President, and members of Norwood City Council, Norwood City Hall. R.E. Mayor's Court Fines. Dear Madam President and members of council, enclosed, please find the report for Norwood Mayor's Court for the month of December 2014. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Thomas F. Williams, Mayor, City of Norwood.
We vote on this? Do I have a motion to accept the, Mr. Mumper?
Move the letter be received and filed, and I'd like to thank Mr. Conlon for the good job he's doing.
We're good. Seconded by Ms. Allen. Call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All members present voted yes. The letter has been received and filed. If there is no other communications, do we have a motion to excuse absent members? Mr. Clark?
So moved.
Second? Second by Ms. Allen. Call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members are voting yes. The absent member has been excused. Do I have a motion to adjourn, Mr. Mumper?
I move we adjourn.
Second by Mr. Clark. Call a roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All present voting yes. We are hereby adjourned.